Officer Candidate School, OCS, is located at Fort Moore, Georgia. It trains, assesses, and evaluates potential commissioned officers for the United States Army, United States Army Reserve, and Army National Guard. OCS is a 12-week course designated as the 3rd Battalion, 11th Infantry Regiment of the 199th Infantry Brigade. The program includes 4 companies: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, with a maximum of 160 candidates trained in each class. Candidates need to prepare themselves to successfully graduate from this program course after completing it. This is the OCS course map. Week 1, Phase Up, ACFT.
Yeah, so the ACFT is going to be the very first day or second day of OCS. You're going to end up taking 2 ACFTs. One is basically just to weed out ACFT to make sure you meet the standard of Officer Candidate School. You just have to meet the minimum Army requirements of the ACFT in order to pass it. But it's good to do your best in it, because the cadre are going to be paying attention to people who are kind of halfway doing things during the events of the first ACFT. You're going to do that one extremely early too, and you probably just got done traveling really far. Some people came from Germany, Hawaii, Italy, just for OCS, and they would have just got off the plane or just got out of the car after a long drive. So it's a pretty rough ACFT, so definitely come physically fit to OCS.
If prior to that event your company has more candidates than there are slots, which is going to be 160, then that event determines who gets to continue in the course, right? And it's literally just like whoever gets the lowest ACFT below the 160 mark is not going to class up.
And then that second ACFT is extremely important. It's for your OML points. So that's order of merit list. And your order of merit list is whether you get the branch that you desire or not. Not many people max those ACFTs, so that's not the standard. But definitely getting around a 550 or higher is going to really help your chances of getting the branch you want.
The second ACFT, which is week 4 or 5 or 6, depending on your company, that's the one that's graded for your OML. And so obviously that one's really important. It's worth 600 points, and your total OML is 1900. So it's about a third of all of your points that you can get while you're here. So obviously you want to make sure you're prepared for it. But there's nothing special about it. It's just an ACFT.
Leader Reaction Course. Week 2 through 3, History.
History was a 2-week-long program of instruction where you basically learn about U.S. Army military history from before it was even really the Army, all the way up to current day. It's very long days that you're spending in the classroom, and it can be pretty tedious. So you need to make sure that you're focused at all times.
History's pretty rough. It's probably the roughest course here. It has the most retesters. We had a ton of retesters, and some classes will have over a quarter of the class retest history. We weren't allowed caffeine during Black Phase, so that's another one of the privileges that you don't have during Black Phase. So you're going to be really tired. It's like I said, it's 8-9 hours of classes a day. It's 35 hours of history overall, and about a week and a half.
So we started, from the beginning of French-Indian War. We got into the Revolution, and then on up to Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then we ended with the global war on terrorism. It's 2 weeks of long days where you're in the classroom, You're taking copious notes. However, I found it really interesting, but also rewarding to learn about those who have come before you and just have a better understanding of military history, because as you progress through your career, you're going to be contributing to it. Dr. Campbell and Mr. Van Every are very engaging and really explain the material well, but you definitely need to take notes. You definitely need to pay attention for the entirety of the class.
One thing that will be pointed out to you by your instructors is that you need to be careful about having a big group study session where one person is in charge of putting together a study guide, because I think that could have caught a few people off. If you're not putting in the work to make your own kind of study guide, it might hurt you if you're depending too much on someone else to make a study guide for you. So definitely don't rely on other people. It's good to study in small groups, but I wouldn't personally, I don't like studying in a group of more than 4. Also, throughout the POI, your instructors will make it clear what is testable material. So if you ever see the red text on the PowerPoint and they start stomping their feet, you need to make sure you're paying attention and taking notes.
So you really need to just pay attention, work together with your battle buddies to make study guides, and every night you should be studying the material that you went over that day and the material that you're going to go over the next day, because ultimately that's what's going to help you retain the information. Really pay attention to the words in red. Doc Campbell does a great job teaching the history class, and he does this foot stomp method whenever something's going to be on the test. He'll say something and he'll stomp his foot. Make sure you take note of that, because that for sure is going to be testable material. It can be tricky, and you can be confused sometimes in history on what's going to be testable or not, but ultimately Doc Campbell's a great teacher, and if you pay attention and don't get overwhelmed with all the information you're given, you're going to do just fine on history.
Four-mile run on this 1 mile long track. You need to complete it in 36 minutes or less. It's not hard if you've come prepared to OCS. If you come here and you're not a strong runner, that's the hardest thing for anyone to improve on in such a short amount of time. So I would say if you're going to focus on one thing before you come to OCS, it's definitely being able to run the 4 miles in 36 minutes.
Really early in the morning. I can't remember exactly what time we started. It was probably around 4:30 a.m. So wake up's going to be super early, so make sure you go to bed at an appropriate time the night before. That's going to help you a lot. Make sure you stretch out really well.
It is difficult for a lot of people here at OCS. Almost everyone passed, and we only had 1 recycle, but it's you just have to practice. Different obstacles. For our class, we had to complete 10, and if you didn't complete 10, then you were recycled. It was, it required a lot of upper body strength, so if you are, worried about the obstacle course, I would focus there, but it's definitely doable.
You can motivate your squad as you're doing it, but you're not allowed to touch them or help them or anything. You need to pass 70% of the obstacles to not get recycled. We did have a few recycles in our company for it, which was apparently kind of unusual compared to other companies that have been at OCS previously. So I would say definitely make sure you know how to climb a rope before you get here. And if you don't know how to do it, once you get to OCS, just practice it. We have several ropes that you can climb for fun while you're here. Make sure you have that upper body strength to get over a low wall and stuff like that. That's about all you can do to prepare really for Bolton.
Bolton is right after you finish history for Charlie Company. They consist of rope climb, Jacob's Ladder, and a series of other events. Not any harder than a basic training obstacle course, in all honesty, other than the rope climb. Some people just really don't know how to do that, but it's mostly technique. And we do have ropes and a small obstacle course here on the footprint at OCS that you can practice on to prepare for that.
Peer evals are it's a structured way for your squad to give feedback to each other at various points in the cycle. So we had it 3 times. One I think like week 4 or 5, one immediately after sticks, and then one, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks after sticks. Basically what happens is you get given like this Excel sheet where you talk about every other member of your squad and you rank them from highest to lowest, and you talk about some of their areas they did well and areas that they could use improvement. From that, once your squad is done, the cadre will review it and they'll put together some paperwork to show, where you placed in your squad. If you get the lowest ranked, then what happens is you get peered out, which basically means you're going to get moved to a different squad within your platoon.
Typically, people get peered out because they don't, voice their opinions enough, or maybe they're not, coming down to formation on time. It's just little things typically. Also, when you go to sticks, which is our field event at OCS, if you're not doing your job and trying to help everyone get a good grade, your peers are going to notice that, and you're going to get peered pretty low typically. If you get peered out 3 times, again, you can go to a whole person concept board, and you could possibly get a day 1 recycle or just recycled. Ultimately, it's not a good thing. So.
Yeah, so land nav was a 5-day long field exercise where what you're basically doing is a few days before, like you get some POI in the classrooms on the principles of land nav, and then you go out to the field and test it.
So there's a pre-test, a regular test, and then a retest for land nav. So for the pre-test, it doesn't count against you if you fail it, but if you do pass it, then you don't have to test and you don't have to retest if you don't want to. So it's really helpful to kind of understand land nav, at least at the base level before you get to OCS. That way it's not too difficult for you to pass the pre-test.
The first 2 or 3 days doing pre-tests, leading up to your actual test, I think it was, it started with like one cadre-led day and night iteration where one of your cadre will go out and they'll basically have your group find a point and they'll instruct you on how to do it along the way. And then you have a buddy team iteration where you go out with one other person to go try to find points together. Then you have your solo practice, which it is technically a practice, but if you do well on it, you can actually use that as your score for the event. So if you do super well in your practice and get a 7 out of 7 on day and night, you're done. You don't need to go back out. So I would definitely try. Don't use the practice as just a way to don't use it as an excuse to walk around and just have fun. Try, because then if you knock it out, then you can just relax for the rest of the field event. And then you have your actual test days. So you have 2 attempts for day and night iterations. I would say tips for land nav. So we took it in the summer. It was incredibly dense vegetation. So you want to minimize your dead reckoning as much as you can, because it's really easy to lose your sense of direction when you're trying to break through brush. For us, our maps were decent. They weren't 100% accurate, so you have to be careful. Take your map with a grain of salt, right? And use find different ways to make sure that it makes sense. Your map makes sense depending on how far you've walked along a certain trailhead or whatever. You want to use attack points as much as you can. So if you find very distinguishable terrain, like an intersection of a trail and a road, or a piece of trail that has a sharp 90-degree turn, and where your azimuths are, you can use those as attack points to get close to your destination and dead reckon as little as possible.
Night land nav's a little more difficult. You're going to do that. I believe we started around 10 o'clock, so 2200, and you're going to get 4 hours to find 4 points. It's plenty of time, but it is a little bit difficult because you're not allowed to use your headlight unless you're standing or stopped, and then you can use your red light. You cannot use your white lens. So definitely bring a good red lens light. It's going to be really helpful for you during night land navigation because the woods and forest in Georgia are extremely dense if you're not from here. And you're going to quickly find out that without a good red lens and not knowing your bearing in land nav is going to make it very, very difficult for you.
I thought very difficult because we were in the middle of the summer where the vegetation was super thick. It was extremely hot. The 7 points that they give you, you have to find 4 in order to pass. There's a day and a night portion, and it is doable. I came straight from basic, and that was my only land nav experience. It's a lot different. The points are a lot harder to find.
There's also a lot of wildlife. I personally didn't have any issues, but like one person got charged at by a boar. I think I heard another company, someone got bit by a spider. Yeah, so land nav is one of the bigger sources of recycles typically for OCS. I forget how much it was for our company, but it's definitely one where if you're not great at land nav, do everything you can to get the 4 out of 7 for a day and night, because you don't want to have to go back out there with another company.
It's not too bad, but if you haven't been rucking previous to OCS or very recently, it can be kind of difficult. Most people don't struggle with the 6 mile, but if you do fail the 6 mile, you have to retest it just like any other POI event. So it's really important that you do come physically fit to OCS. So all the rucks are 35 pounds dry. No water is added to the weight whenever it's weighed after the ruck.
It's basically your introduction to op orders. Really more as an exercise for sticks, but they want to get you familiar with it before you get out in the field. So you're gonna get some POI on how an op order works, how you build one. They'll provide you a shell to fill out your op order. So you'll be given a mock platoon op order, which you'll have to distill down to a squad level because you're acting as a squad leader for this op order. And then you get a few hours to work on it and then present to your cadre. So as long as you stick to the shell and you don't, use too much of your time, which I think we had a 30-minute time limit for the actual presentation, then you'll be fine.
For the garrison op order, basically they're going to issue an op order after giving you several classes over it one evening, and you're going to have that entire day basically to go over the op order. Again, it's company dependent. So maybe you'll have a day, or maybe you only have a couple hours to fill out this op order. And then the following day, so you're going to turn your op orders in that night. And then the following day, you're going to begin testing for garrison op order. And essentially, the cadre are going to call you in one by one, and you're going to sit there for about 30 minutes, and you're going to brief your op order. The classes should prep you good enough for them, but definitely rely on prior service members who have filled out op orders before, or at least used to being around op orders and hearing them briefed, because they're going to really help you out on them. They're not too difficult, and garrison op ord is not an event that you should stress yourself over too much, like history or land navigation, but it's really going to help you to learn these concepts, because ultimately at sticks you're going to have to brief an op ord, and you're only going to have a couple hours the night before to put it together. So definitely learn as much as you can for garrison op ord, but don't stress yourself out too much.
But we had to clear our M4s, our saws, M240s. We had to disassemble and reassemble them and then perform a functions check. We had to work with the ASIP radios, and then there were some things like 9-line, a salute report, and a few other items. But those are definitely doable, and there's plenty of time for you to practice them beforehand.
Be given 5 points if you do the task very well and meet it on the time standard given, or you're going to be given as low as 1 point if you didn't do very well on the task. It's a maximum of 50 points, I believe. If you get all the tasks 5 points on your first go. So that's really huge, especially for the OML, because every point matters for the order of merit list whenever you're getting your class or your branch for your class. So definitely pay attention whenever you're going over these classes for taking apart the SAW M240 and the M4 because it's going to be extremely helpful whenever you actually have to test on those items. You're also going to have to run a functions check on all three of those weapon systems, as well as take them apart and put them back together. So reassembly and assembly is definitely the most difficult part for the weapons, and some people struggle also assembling the radio. You have plenty of time to practice the WTVDs. You basically have weeks to do it. I believe our class had 2 or 3 weeks to use the weapons. We're going to be bringing those to classes, and you can reassemble and disassemble them and run through functions checks. So definitely have time to prepare.
So both of those are just like 1 day or 2 day POIs. Take good notes, ask questions. The Call for Fire one is open book. The other one wasn't. You need 70% to pass.
The tactics test was primarily on small unit tactics. That was, it was taught in a classroom setting, and it was a relatively quick test prior to sticks that just, obviously wants to better understand your knowledge prior to going in and performing the sticks.
Call for Fire, you're going to learn everything in about a 7-hour class in 1 day, and then in that same day you're going to go ahead and take the test. We were given an open note test for Call for Fire, which was extremely rare. You weren't allowed to use those laptops for the actual test, but you were allowed to use your handwritten notes. Call for Fire is essentially field artillery. It's a lot of math, couple of equations you have to memorize for the test. It's not too bad, but again, if you don't pay attention during the class, it can really hurt you. But rely on your battle buddies on keeping you awake during that class, and you should be just fine. For tactics, it's very similar. I believe we took the class the day prior to tactics, and then the day after we took the test. It was not open note like Call for Fire, but it wasn't too difficult. Most people passed tactics. But again, if you have to retest Call for Fire or tactics, you're going to have plenty of time to study for those, and you're going to have all the notes and slides available to help you out on that test.
Testing our ability to, one, understand how to write a memo, and two, really understand what aspects of a battle were important, and then be able to connect those to things like MET-TC or OACOC, which you will learn once you do get to OCS.
It's basically a memorandum for record that we have to write based on a vignette of like some war story that the history instructors will give you. So ours was about a second lieutenant who had only very recently assumed command of a platoon operating in Afghanistan. And so you basically had to read this, like, I think it was like 20 pages or something, really understand like what the theme of that narrative is about, and then you're going to have to take that information and distill it into a 5-paragraph, less than 2-page, less than 600 word. So there's 2 parts to the BA that can get people. One is like, it is a memorandum for record, so they're trying to test you on your understanding of formatting. They'll give you instruction on like what specific formatting, like how things work, how indented this line needs to be, how many spaces need to come after this letter. And then the other piece is like the actual content of what you're writing. So they're going to be testing your ability to like translate this vignette into like the technical terms that you learn in history, like the MET-TC and the OCOC.
For us, Charlie Company, we had to memorize the entire story, and we had to turn it into a 2-page battle analysis in the classroom. We had 2 hours given to us, allocated towards fulfilling this requirement. It was pretty difficult trying to memorize a 17-page battle, but the actual format isn't too difficult to understand if you've reviewed it a lot. They're kind of going to give you exactly what you need for the format prior in those classes given by Doc Campbell, and we wrote it out on laptops for about 2 hours in the classroom. But it wasn't too bad, and even the people that did have to retest, all of them passed.
Yeah, so Styx is the last big event of the cycle. I would say it's the only other one that's worth 600 points like the ACFT, and I think Styx is really what can make or break people when it comes to the OMO.
It's your opportunity to really take both your small unit tactics, understanding your ability to lead, and your ability to work with your peers, and it combines it all into one situational training exercise where you're given an op order the night before. You have to translate that op order into a squad op order, and then you're required to carry out that op order the next day. And so you're in charge of your entire squad. You have two team leaders, and your goal is to perform the best squad assault on the objective, and it takes place out in the field on McBride's Bridge, which is a training ground specifically for OCS and specifically for the Styx exercise.
At some point, you're going to go out as a squad leader with a squad of anywhere from like 8 to 13 people, depending on how big your squads are in your company. You're going to be given a platoon op order the night before, and you're going to work overnight to, just like you did for the garrison op order, distill it down into a squad level, and then basically make a plan of attack on an objective. So with that, there's two big pieces that make up your points for Styx, which is the op order brief itself, and then the execution of your lane afterwards. So you really need to make sure you focus on both pieces. I would say the biggest thing is the rubric that you're going to be graded on will be available to you to look at. So take time to understand what's on the rubric so you focus on getting the things done you need to get done.
Basically what happens at Styx is you're in your squad that you're typically in your platoon in the company, and you're going to run stick lanes. Essentially, you're just using a support by fire team and an assault team, and you're seizing or clearing an objective. There's a lot of things that can happen on the lanes that you might not be prepared for. There might be a casualty. Op 4 might fire at you whenever you're setting up your support by fire or assault position. There's a lot of things that can happen on the lanes, but they're not too difficult. They're pretty short lanes, only about 400 meters long each. But you do run a lot of lanes in one day. You're going to have a bit of time to practice on the lanes before you go out on them in the first week. You're going to have about 2 days to practice with your squad, and a cadre is going to kind of follow you around and give you tips on what you're either doing wrong or what you're doing right. And then after those 2 days, you're going to go ahead and get into the grading period. On your lane, again, you're going to go ahead and you're going to execute LDAs. So you're going to cross linear danger areas such as roads and creeks. You're going to form up an ORP pulling security while Leaders Recon gets together and plans the Leaders Recon that they're about to go out on. They'll go out on Leaders Recon, they'll set up either support by fire in the assault or maybe just the support by fire position, come back to the ORP, and then they're going to execute the mission from there, either clearing or seizing an objective. It's not too difficult, but one major thing that you need to know for Styx is fracture size and automatic recycle. So if your support by fire ends up pointing at your assault team or starts firing at them, it's definitely an automatic recycle. So that's pretty much the only thing you really need to be concerned about at Styx, other than obviously executing the mission.
Also really important too that you lean on any of your in-service peers that might have some kind of infantry background or op-board background, because they're going to help you a lot with understanding how to put together your brief and how to execute the lane. You do need to be careful with relying on them too much, because it could be perceived by your graders as you losing command and control because you're having someone else do all the work for you. So don't go overboard, but get the help where you need it. Start the day, the first lane, our squad went out at 06:30 or something, and we would execute our lane, and then immediately following that, the end of the first lane is only 50 yards away from the start of the second lane. So you walk over there with your squad after finishing the first one, you rest for a little bit, drink water, you know, get your gear ready for the next one. But it's usually like a 5 or 10 minute stop before the next squad leader gets their op order. So it's like the whole day you're just moving. That's basically how it works. Oh yeah, so that's one thing that changes is at least for us, like our 6 mile ruck, we did not carry a weapon, and then the 9 mile we did carry a weapon, so that'll add to your weight. But everyone's carrying on form.
Mile ruck was pretty, it was the longest ruck here at OCS, and it's one of the final physical requirements that, may catch some people, slipping, but everyone in our company was able to complete it, so you just have to make sure that you prepare leading up to the ruck.
12-mile ruck's not extremely difficult, but it can be hard because it's all on the road, so it's pretty rough on your feet and your knees. It's basically one big hill that you have to go up towards the end of the ruck with about a couple miles to go, and that's usually what makes people fall out or makes people struggle the most. So the ruck uniform is going to be sleeves rolled and heat cap 5. You're going to be wearing full OCPs, combat boots, 35-pound ruck dry, taps or flick depending on what you have. You're going to have two one-quart canteens on both sides in your tap system. You're also going to have your camo bag completely full. You're going to carry an M4 depending on which ruck it is. Some companies carry rubber duckies, which is basically just a toy weapon. But our company used the actual M4s for our rucks with no magazines inside. So. Leadership training management test. We learned all the material in one day, and then the next day we took the test on it. Not extremely difficult test to pass, but again, there are people that have to retest it. Again, just take really good notes on that. Use Quizlet. Some quizzes are completely outdated for OCS, but there are definitely some good ones that have some helpful information. So don't completely rely on them, like their doctrine for the test, but use those as kind of a guide along with the slides, and you should be absolutely fine for that test. 2 more of like the smaller graded items. It's like you get a single day of POI, and then you're tested on it like either the same day or the following day. Neither of them are open book, and the instruction can be kind of quick, so make sure you're taking good notes.
final 2 weeks are dedicated to preparing you for graduation, completing paperwork, and out processing. The hardest part is already behind you. You have witnessed the transition of soldiers into officers, which is no easy feat. It demands discipline, motivation, and strong physical and mental resolve. Remember, this is not the end. It is the beginning of your career as an Army officer. The soldiers are now your responsibility. I would like to extend special thanks to Officer Candidate Finn Connor, Officer Candidate Valderrama Nicholas, and Officer Candidate Brown Lucas for their interviews, as well as to OCS Class 0724 for all the pictures. I also appreciate Sergeant Class Tiernan Matthew for the voice narration and Master Sergeant Jenkins Hezekiah for the OCS Alma Mater song. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video helps you successfully prepare for Officer Candidate School. This has been an Officer Candidate Chanshapu Titanan production.